comfy summer woven shorts, non-stretch, are making an appearance all over the world, and with stretch waistbands that are shirred or faux-shirred. So let's make one with a faux-shirred waistband, knowing how soft and kind those are for tummies. Let's start with the faux-shirred waistband, because we're going to need this before we can sort out our pattern that we're going to clone from our woven pants. The only difference between what I have here in my hands and my tutorial on faux shirring a waistband is that I've cut out two pieces. I'm going to be using the blue as my front, but instead of folding it at the top, I'll be using black foil as my backing, and I'll be joining it at the top instead of having that fold. Now the only reason I'm doing that, here I am going along with my top join. I'm doing it because I'm scant on fabric, and it's just a way of minimizing your main fabric requirement, or if you need to put on something that's kinder and more smooth and likable for your skin, because this piece will rest on the inside. That's the top join done, and it looks like this. You'll need to go, if you're joining it at the top like me, you'll need to go and press that now. Once it's pressed nice and flat, you can start the channel making, because remember, we're making tunnels between those two pieces of fabric so that we can insert pieces of elastic. Now when you make your channels, one of the hardest parts, I suppose, is how do you get your seam lines straight? Well, do you see all of those little markers on the needle plate? You can use any of those, and you can see how straight I'm getting that. Now that's actually not going to be my first channel, but you should actually have a look at how wide your elastic is that you've chosen so that you can make your channels fit your elastic. Okay, so what I'm showing here is that I'm using that little groove, and that's how I'm getting it so straight. I'm lining the groove up with the edge of my fabric. I can see where exactly the needle will be, and that is how I'm getting it so straight. When the fabric covers the markers, then I used my fingertips to feel for the edge of that needle plate, and that was my second marker. So by touch. Now this is what I ended up with. So this is how it's different to my tutorial on faux shirring. So in that one, I just had channel after channel after channel. In this one, I have actually made myself a pattern. So I just used a tiny little bit at the top just to simulate a double channel. I will be putting in my elastic in the second bit. Then you can see there's a gap, and then there's a single channel, a gap, and then double channel, a gap, a single, a gap, a double, a gap, a single. So why not go ahead and make yourself a pattern? I think that it looks intentional, it's creative, and most importantly, it can save you time because you're not having to do multiple tiny little channels. Now, of course, I like to use very thin elastic because that is what is most comfortable, kindest, softest, gentlest for me. But you choose what kind of elastic you like. Before we actually get to threading the elastic, we actually need to cut our elastic lengths. If you don't do that step, you are going to have an absolutely terrible time trying to get your waistband to fit you properly, because your elastics will be absolute little devils and ping and slip and slide and be unmanageable. So count how many channels you've got. I needed to use 2 lots of elastic. It doesn't matter what color it is, it's going to be encased. And go ahead, wrap it around your body so that it's a comfortable elastication for you. You are going to be different to me, and then cut the same elastic lengths if that's you. If you've got a narrower waist, you'll need to cut the top elastics slightly smaller. So size them for the channels that you have. Order them if you need to, so you know which elastic lengths go into which channel. Mine are all the same because I'm a fairly long pelvis, so I'm quite a rectangular shape in my waistband. Okay, now I've got all my elastics cut. I'm going to go ahead and thread them. So I'm using my loop turner, and I simply push that loop turner through my channels, and I also use safety pins. You're going to have safety pins that are small enough to get through your channels, and the safety pins are very important because they prevent snapping of the elastic back into the channel, and that's a pain. You really have to do it again. You can't actually feed it back through when it's somewhere in the middle of your shirred waistband disappeared in there. So secure with the elastic, with the safety pin, the edges and the ends, both sides of your elastics. I don't have sufficient safety pins, so I'm actually just going to use what I have and secure them all. All right, it's as easy as that. Keep going all the way through until you've got it all threaded, pulled through, and evened out. And we need to get a wriggle on to get over to the cloning and the sewing of those shorts. So I will leave you to finish off that waistband. If you don't know how, just have a look at the tutorial that I'll link now. You're simply securing the elastics on the sewing machine and sewing your side seam. So to clone your non-stretch pants, make the selection first of all. I'm going to be using a pair of jeans simply because I don't have anything else, but I'll put a little list of things that would be really ideal. Now you'll see that when you've laid it out that there's that extra bit on the side that I just pointed to. Now we need to make sure that we don't actually put our side seam where the extra bit is. So you can see I'm just going underneath with my pen now and drawing in where that side seam actually rests. This is very common in pants that the back piece will be larger than the front piece. And if you think about accommodating a bottom, that would be why. So get this side seam trace correct, and you've laid your pants out holding the crotch point and aligning each of the outer seams and the inner seam so that you can get it flat. Now the back piece, you can see where I'm working up there, that's a bit taller than the front piece. That is also to accommodate bottoms. So we just need to be careful that I've got my implement underneath, which was very frustrating. You need to make sure that you're actually tracing the right piece. So I'm really getting under there for the front of that waist line now. I'm lifting the back piece up. I don't want in this cloning trace. Now we need to pay attention to our crotch curve. Be really, really careful with your crotch curve. And you may actually need to go back and do this again. I'll preface this already that I wanted to do mine again, and I did later on. But be careful that you have got the seam flat on your paper. That's quite hard to do when you've got these, what are they called, flat felled seams, where you've got sort of a double ridge of material, which are common in jeans. So I suggest not doing jeans unless you really want that fit. But just get yourself a simple pair of woven pants that fit you really well and hopefully don't even have a zip, because a zip adds a little bit of complexity. You've got to sort of just really go along where the halfway point of your fold in half of your centerpiece is, not worrying too much about the zip, just to get that front crotch curve. Once you've got that out, now you're onto the inner leg, and well, this one's a really easy one for me because it fell out really nice and flat. So just drawing down there. Probably you want to do this in pencil as well. The only reason I'm doing it in texture is just so that it does show up on the camera for you. When you've got your trace done, go back in and smooth out the lines that you've made, because you might have made a few markers and you might know which ones are, oh, this one, do this one. So you're just joining them up and blending them and smoothing them. And it is quite common, obviously, for the side seam where I'm hitting up there in the waist to be higher than the center front, because it's going to join into the back piece. So just smooth out that curve of the waistline. We're almost ready to move on. You can use a ruler for the side seams if they are relatively straight. I think I've got a very little bit of shaping in the hip, very, very minor in this pair. So I'll use a ruler for some of it. It's all lining up very nicely. How lucky for me. Again, this is why I suggest get yourself a really simple, basic, well-fitting pant so you can clone that and it'll fall out easily for you. Okay, I've sped it up a little, just sketch around that little bit of hip shaping that I've got, and I'm just firming up my lines, making sure that you can see them on the video. I can see them just, and making sure I've got a nice outline, and that will be my cloned woven pant. In fact, they're my jeans. So always label your patterns and date them because you change size. So you want to see which year and when you made them. Cut it out. And we have just about finished now with the front. So with trousers, your front is going to be different to your back. And I really want you to pay lots of attention to the crotch curves because they're incredibly important. And in fact, they're going to be different. I'm going to go through this at the end of the video, how different a crotch curve can be in different materials. So stretch versus non-stretch, and also design. Tight, skinny legs compared to wide legs. The crotch curve is going to be different. Okay, let's get on to the back now. Okay, holding on to the back crotch curve and aligning the inner leg seam. That's how we want to lie our jeans or our pants out in order to clone them. So try and get that nice and flat. Again, you want the crotch curve to be clearly visible and lying flat. And now the tricky part with the back part of your pant is that you're probably going to have that extra little bit of fold or that's wrapping around to the front, and that's catering for your body, your bottom. So here we go. I'm getting my crotch curve in straight away. It's falling out very nicely and neatly and easily. The rise at the back will always be greater and angled then down towards the side seam in a well-fitting pair. Okay, if you don't have a greater rise at the back, then you are going to get plumber's crack when you bend or sit. That is not nice. And now we just have to deal with this little overlappy bit at the front. So I'm dotting in the fold line at the moment. And then with the next bit, I'm going to just have a look, flip it back and see how much there is folded. And then I'll add that to my dotted fold line. You can do this with a ruler so that you're getting it exactly correct, or a pair of calipers if you have them. I'm kind of used to doing this, so I'm going to just eyeball it. But of course, if you want it absolutely correct, please use the appropriate implements. All right, do that all the way up. I don't believe you'll see the fold deviate really in size. I don't think I've ever seen that. And then we're just about done with our back piece. Now, before we actually get to the cutting of that, we've got to do some truing up. So we're going to compare our inner leg lengths, really walk that through, and again the outer seam as well, just to make sure that you've got the lengths corresponding. My one, I think I needed to add a little bit of extra length to one of the legs. So you can take that time now to get that falling out nicely and make the adjustments that you need. Go ahead and cut. We've got a back piece, and when we put that together with the inner legs together, that is the part where you sit. Now we are not quite ready yet and finished with our pattern yet, because we need to try on our pants and we need to put on our waistband. It has to be done on body, because you'll find that your pants and where you want your waistband to be might be different levels. You can see my jeans are down there, but I'm wearing my waistband higher. So get them positioned exactly where you want your waistband to be. And now you're going to figure out just a little bit of seam allowance on your waistband and pin the join line onto your pants. So you're pinning around your body where the join line is actually going to be. And you're going to have in your head that you've got some seam allowance allowing for, that's why I'm lifting that little ledge up there. That's my seam allowance on my waistband. But I'm pinning the join line and I do all the way around, and then I'm going to put it on my pattern. Now the next thing is I've got to also do the length, because if you're making shorts and you're making it from a trouser, you have to adjust the length. So again, we can do this on body. It's helpful if you've got someone to pin for you so you can stand straight, but I don't. I've luckily got fairly long arms. I'm going to pin around all the way around again, as I didn't show you I had to pin all the way around with the waistband, including the back. Okay, so don't forget, you've got to pin it all the way around. And now we can go and transfer it to the pattern. Now, I did mention that I wanted to do my front crotch curve again because the zip and the chunky seams got in the way for me. So I felt like I needed to do that again. I laid it all out again, and then I've just used sticky tape to put on a little bit of extra paper, and I've drawn in the corrected line. I was correct. I did need to adjust that. And now I'm just going to cut out the reformed pattern for my front piece. So you can do that as many times as you want. Just double check your work, because you do want to make sure that you are confident that you have really got your clone, your trace correct. All right, so there is now my reformed piece of front pattern. And it's time to lay out that pant against your pattern very accurately so you can transcribe the high hip measurement, which is essentially where my waistband is joining in, or wherever it is that you want your join line and that you have pinned on your pants. Same thing again for the hemline if you are making shorts from a pant or a trouser. So we need to get it nice and straight to do this. Do some little bits of transcribing for your pins, and then at the end we can also just tidy that up with a ruler. So I actually flipped my pants so they're front side down. I found it easier to get the pin transcription down in a more accurate manner when I did that. And once I've got that done, here comes the ruler to just, because you can see those points that I've marked, they don't really line up. This is a really good time to also put your grain line in. So I'm going to have to really jiggle this pattern a bit. I've got an annoying lump of jeans on it, so I'll get rid of that lump of jeans so I can get my my pattern to lie straight. And I'm going to use the grid lines on my cutting mat to help me get things aligned. So lining up the waistline and finding the perpendicular, which goes down the center front. That's your grain line. So when you come to cut, that's important to know. And now I've also got a straight line that I can follow to get my hemline tidied up. And there we go, hemline join in. That's my join line for shorts. Let's do one more little check. I'm just folding it up perpendicularly and looking at the hemline of the jeans, and it actually worked out that it was straight. Yay! We're almost finished with the pattern now. We just have to do the same thing on the back piece, and once you've marked in both the short line and the high hip line where the waistband joins, as you can see on this picture, just the waistband, it sort of runs like this when you join the side seams up. I wanted to speak a little bit about crotch curves, just so you're aware of the differences and that you've made the right selection for your loose-fitting casual summer shorts vision that we have. So this part over here is, we'll call it non-stretch. These do have some stretch, but non-stretch, okay, as most as I can get from my wardrobe. This pile over here, this is all stretch. Now, most of my wardrobe stretches, okay, but this is highly stretchy material. So you can see this one, how narrow that crotch curve is. It's made from a leggings or a tight fitting yoga pant pattern. And it is don't get confused that it's not as long because I've got that waistband on, okay? So the crotch curve itself becomes quite narrow when we look at the bit right here. Okay, very narrow right through here. And that's because it's going to activate stretch. It is supposed to be tight to your body and move with your body. So just don't worry about how long that is because, like I said, we've got the waistband on top. Have a look at the narrowness and the curvature of the bottom bit. Okay, let's have a look now at a jersey pair of summer shorts. They're like a French knicker tap short type of construction. Look how hued that is. Nice and wide and hued and completely different to our tight to the body exercise pants. Okay, again, I've got that same waistband on, the soft jersey waistband. So we're looking at the U wide shape. Very different designs. Crotch curve is what makes the difference. Now if we switch over to the best I could do for non-stretch, okay, there's a little bit of stretch in these, but with a jeans one particularly, you can see how that's quite almost straight. It's very not hued. That's because we like a peachy look in our jeans. So the buttocks are cupped. That's why it's cut so much narrower in that back piece. Okay, these are high rise, so that's why you'll see that's a lot longer. And for the purposes of our shorts, we're blending in a wide waistband anyway. Okay, let's fold that one back. Now we've seen that, yeah, there's quite a lot more room in that than the stretchy pants. Let's have a look at another pair. These are not jeans. These are quite a baggy cargo pant. And again, you can see a greater U shape through the crotch. It's not quite so narrow in the back piece, especially. So it's not going to be peachy for your bottom. Very comfortable to sit in because there's a lot more sit room in there. So that's another style. Doesn't matter so much about the material because these are often cut from non-stretch materials. But the style is dictating the crotch curve. All right, now let's look down at the woven pair of shorts I ended up constructing. Now, I said I used my jeans pattern for the purposes of showing you how to clone because I do not own non-stretch trousers. So I had to develop this from scratch, and you can see how wide I made it. I needed it to have lots of sit room and very wide through here because it's a loose baggy fit, the design. And of course nothing is going to stretch. That's my waistband, so it's giving me that height. Remember, it will work the same for you because you've blended the waistband onto whatever you've cloned. So we are going to be needing a wide, loose crotch curve. I hope your clone has turned out really, really well. It's looking good at this stage. But what I'm going to do now is move into Lucy's fruity tour of crotch curve adjustment terminology. So just in case you need to adjust your pattern, I'm going to give you the words you need to look up and some resources for excellent tutorials. Okay, here we go. No pejorative intent to any fruit or bodies. Here's my crotch curve of my woven shorts. And to be clear, no dangleberries here, it's women's shorts. Let's have a look at some of the things that where our bodies might be different. So first up, nice big butt. What happens to the crotch curve when you have got a big butt? It may not fit you. You may need a full rear adjustment. That's the words. What if you've got a flat butt? Let's look at a tiny mandarin. Much flatter, isn't it? You may need a flat rear adjustment. Those are the words. Now, what happens if your bottom has slidden down? You may need a low rear adjustment. By the way, that can also be because of your pelvis, the shape, or the tilt. not because you're just fleshy and dangly, okay? No pejorative intent, but the words you're looking for are low butt adjustment. Okay, pubis. Round pubis adjustment. If you're rounder there, you may need the round pubis adjustment. Camel toe can be from a variety of things, so that's only one of the things that you may need to adjust. Lastly, now, don't give me any connotations of eggplants. I just didn't want to buy marshmallows, otherwise my full tummy would get fuller. The full tummy adjustment. It's going to take space. Now, what happens if you have a lower hanging tummy? Sometimes we call that an apron belly, just in colloquial term, but in sewing, we would call that an adjustment for a low abdominal contour. Well, we have had a very full video, and so our sewing up will come next time in part 2, and we'll get our shorts looking kind of like this. And then in part 3, we're going to put on pockets, all sorts of pockets, patch pockets in the front and on the back, and we're going to do a belt. So we're going to end up finally with this kind of short. I hope you have enjoyed the video. Please subscribe. You can click on my face right now. Enjoy your comfy life, and I'll see you next time.